Yeah, you're right, Ludo. Yeah, I'm a bit down in the dumps. I had, well, what I thought was a unique idea for my game, but it ended up having to be scrapped because the mechanic had already been patented. Can you patent mechanics? Well, that's a good question. The world of video game patents is extremely weird, but before we dive into that cesspool, we first need to understand what a patent even is, so I hope you've got your water handy, because this is going to be a tad dry for a second. Now to start with, I'm not a patent lawyer, but I am a dickhead, so I'll try my best to discuss all of this with as much care as I can, so Sony's attorneys don't come for me. A patent is a power given to a creator that permits them exclusive rights to manufacture and sell their invention for a set period of time. The only catch being that they have to disclose what that invention is to the public via the patent itself. You've got a cool idea and you want to patent it? Well, you can't patent ideas, Ludo. For a video game example, you could patent a unique graphics rendering technique in your game engine, but you can't patent rendering graphics as a concept because then no one could compete or see anything. The same for hardware. The specific way a controller functions, for example, can be patented. In 1985, Nintendo patented their D-pads implementation, which was revolutionary at the time as it made omnidirectional inputs a lot more intuitive. This patent forced its competitors to use alternatives, such as the Sony PlayStation using 4 individual buttons instead. This patent lasted for 20 years, so after 2005, competitors were free to use this design or similar without infringing on Nintendo's patent. And what did we see after 2005? The industry ate, and gamers were better off for it. Powerful publishers and studios use a suite of patents to secure advantages over their competitors that can last anywhere from 15 to 20 years, leading to major barriers of innovation in the industry as a whole. But if you thought you were safe because you're making your tiny little indie game because you're using a proprietary engine and it doesn't have a unique tie-in controller, well then think again, mate. Because this fuckery extends further into individual gameplay systems. Companies with the money to do so withhold the right to patent certain user interface systems, multiplayer interactions, and even unique gameplay mechanics. But patents can't be obvious, and by this I mean if we were both making an FPS, it's obvious to assume we'd both implement ways of shooting a gun. There's only so many ways we can apply this, and the most efficient way to do so is considered obvious. This makes man shoot gun unpatentable. Patents have to be unique in implementation, but this is where the lines get a bit muddy. Because if you find a unique way of implementing something that is beneficial to the player, you can patent it, then preventing other developers from using it, but this doesn't always work out as expected. For example, in Crazy Taxi, they added a directional arrow above the player's vehicle that would guide them to their next destination, which they patented. Well, yeah, we see similar waypoint systems to this in other games because the patent applies specifically to the racing genre, meaning that no one can implement directional arrows as guidance signifiers in their racing games specifically without incurring the potential wrath of Sega's lawyers, forcing developers to find alternatives, which some would say is a good thing because it led to racing line guidance being innovated upon, which is arguably better. The same can be seen with BioWare, who patented their unique dialogue wheel system from Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Now, this doesn't mean that people can't have dialogue in their games, but specifically a wheel with predefined sections correlating to specific themed choices, so the player can make those decisions quickly to better simulate real-world conversations. Yeah, as you'll see with all of these patents, the hand-drawn depictions of the in-game functions and user interfaces are fucking wild. Like, what is this dialogue example? Right there, you sneaking piece of slop. Now, yes, having easily identifiable and recurring sections of your options correlate to specific emotions or outcomes is convenient, but not what makes the system tick. Well, that's the writing. And there are many different ways of simulating conversations in games, like the classical vertical stack that was good enough for Disco Elysium, which is arguably the new bar for in-game dialogue choices, to even choosing the words yourself in games like Cryptmaster. Both of these examples with Crazy Taxi and Mass Effect aren't really holding the industry back because they're so hyper-specific, and through creativity, workarounds and even improvements can be found, but the problem really begins when we get a bit more broad. In 1995, Bandai Namco filed a patent for a novel concept of having minigames playable during loading screens, first used by them in Ridge Racer for the PS1, which while loading gave you access to the arcade game Galaxian. Yeah, I think we can all agree that having something to play while we wait for a loading screen is a great thing, but the patent is so incredibly broad that it pretty much put a stopper to anyone else attempting to implement different uses for this. To boil it down, the patent essentially says we have ownership of loading a small auxiliary game in memory before loading the core experience to be played during loading. There is no workaround for this. If you load a game before your main game and make it playable during the loading screen, you are infringing on this patent, meaning Bandai Namco are responsible for you having to sit there staring mindlessly at throbbers. And it gets worse. This patent expired in 2015, but still, no one adds minigames to their loading screens because it's fallen out of the industry's consciousness that it's even possible. Yes, and loading screens are lightning quick nowadays due to SSDs and such, but fuck off with that. I want to play Tetris while I wait for shaders to compile on this 120GB Western RPG abomination. You know, the more digging I've done, I find it's only major corporations who have these broad patent libraries that actually damage industry innovation. The worst offender being, yeah, that's right, Nintendo, because we all know their lawyers aren't afraid to dish out cease and desist like they're suspicious candy at one of your nan's gilf parties. Nintendo holds a staggering 8,788 patents globally, and at their peak files for 760 in a single year. These range from spawn rates of Pokemon and how they're encountered, Z-targeting in Ocarina of Time, all the way to the sanity system in Eternal Darkness. Well, yeah, it was a great game, and the question has always been, oh well that was neat, why has no one done this again? This is why, because Nintendo owns 8,788 ways to stop you being creative and have the time and spite to destroy you if you attempt to do so. But after all of this, the worst offender for me is still Warner Brothers. Now, yes, I'm talking about Monolith and Warner Brothers' decision to patent the Nemesis system from their popular Shadow of Mordor/War Door series, which is an ingenious way of having dynamic NPCs that hold memory of their interactions with the player and alter their behavior and responses based on those interactions, making them feel obscenely dynamic and real. It truly was a tour de horse, which was just par for the horse for Monolith. What? They've patented every single conceivable interaction of this system, from its Nemesis characters, Nemesis forts, social vendettas, and followers. So good luck attempting to make a system that even comes close to this complexity, which I find incredibly ironic, Monolith. Considering the bones of Shadow of Mordor are built up on Arkham Asylum combat and Assassin's Creed platforming, imagine wholesale copying two other games' core systems and then creating a single unique mechanical interaction and then patenting it so no one else could use it. Then not allowing that team to release anything for 8 years and then canning the entire team and going dark. And if you're wondering how long we've got to wait until other games can attempt to use these designs again, they're set to expire in 2036. So let me say this in the most patent lawyer way I can. Eat my entire ass, Warner Brothers. Right, now this isn't legal advice and you should at no point ever listen to me in this regard, but if you have a similar idea that doesn't constitute direct infringement of implementation of said Nemesis patent, just go for it, mate. Because enforcement of any patent can be controversial and extremely difficult to do. If you can get it past the office, you can basically patent anything, but fighting for that patent in court is a completely different kettle of fish. Something as simple as someone doing one thing similar to your idea before you did can have your case crumble like dry Ritz crackers faster than you can say, oh hey up, look out, Miyamoto's attempting to patent oxygen again. And therein lies the problem. A lot of the time, patents are just ways for corporations to press their big greasy thumbs down on smaller developers who can't afford to take the battle to court, holding back iteration in the industry. But that's not to say they're all scummy. Absolute stone cold rare Electronic Arts W incoming, but they've been patenting accessibility features to help the visually and audibly impaired so no one else can hoard those patents, and then making them open to use for the public, and they keep accruing more and more every every year. This is just a net positive for the industry, and they should be commended for that. At the end of the day, patents exist to protect the rights of an inventor, which is only fair. But just like with anything, they can be used for good and for ill. Sometimes if patents are too specific, this can lead to forced innovations, but if they're too broad, can stagnate an entire burgeoning genre for 2 decades. I'm all for protecting what we've created, but against anything that inhibits our ability to create. But what do you think? Are patents as a whole holding back the industry, or do these constraints force innovation in a dystopian but positive way? Let us know down below, because we would love to discuss this with you. Oi, Ludes, I just checked and I saw that you're not in the Second Wind Patreon. And can I tell you, Missy, that you are missing out. We have Patreon Hangout movie nights, we have exclusive experimental videos, and a bunch of other goodies that you could be involved in, but I guess you're too busy with, I don't know, not having thumbs. Well, yeah, that is fair. You do work here too. Okay, yeah, I'll get you added to that after this. Alright, time to say goodbye, Ludo. Alright, bye guys.